Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, Spiritual Studies, where we're walking with Elvis through the spiritual books that he read to see if we can see the lessons that Elvis learned and that he applied to his own life. And we're going to get started with the book of John, fourth book of the Bible, of the New Testament, with the fourth chapter, as soon as we come back from this song that talks about Elvis's journey through the Word, called Word on Fire. Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear the echoes of chapter 4 from the book of John. Now, yesterday we did a review of the first 3 chapters of the book of John with some illustrations that came from a comic book that was printed over the course of 1941 and 1942. So Elvis would have been a small child, and he probably would have had access to that comic. The kind of comic a church would have bought, or a parent of a friend, or even a relative as a present for young Elvis, because it would have had the right kind of message that they wanted him to see. And welcome Emma at Just a Girl Who Loves Elvis. And welcome Anna. Thank you so much for joining. And Anna says that she really enjoys both this channel and Just a Girl Who Loves Elvis, who is Emma's channel, so be sure to check it out. She puts out a lot of wonderful videos about Elvis. She has a sister channel that puts out a lot of Hollywood questions. And there was a Hollywood question, Emma, that came up a couple episodes ago that you might know, that none of us did, but it's, is there any correlation between the date that Elvis got married and the date that Anne Margaret got married? Because she got married 1 week after Elvis. So that obviously makes it appear that there is some kind of correlation. But do you happen to know anything about like her relationship with her husband, how long they've been dating and stuff like that? It felt to me like it wasn't done as a response to Elvis getting married, but I don't know. Hi, Gunn. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Let's get started with today's text. And that's going to be the book of John, the Impersonal Life, but we're going to be looking at the book of John today. King James Version, chapter 4. Verse 1, when therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples. So we've learned an important piece here from the text, that the Pharisees are hearing about Jesus, that they've now heard he's baptized even more people than John. That's an issue for them because they already had a problem with John the Baptist. And then in verse 2, we learn that Jesus himself is not baptizing anyone. His disciples perform the symbolic act of baptism. The true act of baptism is done with the Holy Spirit, when God is accepted into the hearts of the individuals who have been baptized. That is the baptism. The water baptism that the disciples are performing is a symbol. And Emma says that she has always thought that Anne's marriage was a reaction to Elvis's marriage, but she doesn't know and needs to do more research. And she'll keep us posted. Yeah, eventually we'll go through that period of time when Elvis dated Anne Margaret, and we'll learn some things for ourselves, but I have a feeling if there was a reaction, maybe it was Elvis, because his wedding was not set for May 1st. It was suddenly set for May 1st, sometime in April. And so I'm wondering when the 8th was set as the date for Anne Margaret's wedding. It feels like that would have been maybe 2 or 3 months before, like it would have been public knowledge. I'm even wondering if Elvis received an invitation or a note from Anne, some kind of communication saying that she was getting married. I don't think I've ever seen that reflected anywhere either, but very interesting. Gunn is suggesting you may also want to research Roger, who I believe was Margaret's husband. And Emma agrees that she does. I don't know anything about Roger, so that would be fairly interesting. He must have been a heck of a guy, right? If he took Elvis's shoes, filled Elvis's shoes for Anne Margaret, then he must have been quite a person. As must have been the husbands of Dixie Locke and Barbara Hearn and Anita Wood. I don't really know anything about any of their husbands. Ginger Alden's husband. Other than that, they were with them their entire lives. So we know what kind of people these were. And that says something about the people they were with. And Emma says she's reading Anne Margaret's biography at this moment. So I'm sure that'd be interesting information all Elvis fans would like. I don't even know that they'd like it at this moment. But back to this text, Jesus left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. So Jesus is traveling again, and he's got to go through this spot called Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar. And again, I may be butchering the pronunciations on these place names and people's names. I'm no good at them. So if you know how to pronounce these names, and you can type it correctly into the text, into the chat so that I can say them right, feel free. But then he cometh to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. So Jesus is on what you might even think of as sacred ground. It's connected back into the Old Testament stories of Jacob and Joseph. And Emma says Roger was a good man and a good husband. He seemed really supportive and understanding about Elvis. That's interesting, Emma. In verse 6, now Jacob's well was there. That's something that's really important in this area, is a water well. Now, those of us who grew up in North America, most portions of North America, and probably Europe. I didn't grow up in Europe, so can't really speak for it, but we tend to have plenty of water, plenty of fresh water supply. There are places in America where you have to dig extremely deep to get to a well, but like in the area I live in, you dig, 15 feet into the ground and you're going to hit water, and it's going to be fresh water. In other areas, you're going to have to dig deeper. And we do have, a few deserts, but this is a huge desert, and every water well is extremely important. It's the difference between living and dying, and the text is telling us that Jacob's well is in this spot. And so that was probably the most important thing, materialistically, to Jacob's and his family's well-being, was that well. It's what defines that this was Jacob's land. And the text goes on, Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. So Jesus is tired and he takes a break. And in verse 7, there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. So Jesus is all by himself. The disciples have gone away to buy meat. Now, I'm not sure when this says they've gone to buy meat, if they've gone to buy butchered meat, or whether they're purchasing meat on the hoof, and they're going to bring it back, and they're going to butcher it themselves. I'm sure that all of his disciples were fully capable of butchering an animal on their own. This would have been something that men in that period, and I don't think it even mattered if you lived in a city. I think a lot of men in that period would have had that skill. It would have been almost a survival requirement. And meat would not last very long without refrigeration. So if they did go to buy butchered meat, they're bringing it right back and they're going to be eating it that day. But it's possible they've gone to buy, I don't know, several sheep, and maybe they'll eat one and they'll bring the rest around with them. But it's not like today where you go down to a grocery store and you go to the freezer section and get your meat. That's definitely not what's happening here. But Jesus needs a drink of water. He doesn't have anything to draw the water from the well. Or at least he doesn't appear to, because he hasn't already gotten his own drink, but he's asking for a drink of the water that of the bucket that the lady pulls up. Verse 9, then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. So people who read this in that time or were told that story, they probably instinctively knew from the political situation at the time that the Jews didn't get along with any of the surrounding, I would believe Samaritans are Arabs. I don't know for sure. Today, it's the Jews and the Arabs that don't get along and that share that area. So I'm assuming that the Samaritans were Arabs, but they're not Jews. They're not part of the chosen people. And this woman is stating that Jews and Samaritans don't like each other. And she's blaming it on the Jews because she's saying, you're a Jew, why are you asking me this? But I think she's also saying that as a woman of Samaria, she wouldn't ask a Jew for water. It's both ways. But there's a... like in America, we would tend to use a word racist for this. But I don't think it's really about race. It's about tribalism and different, differences between people. And we tend to use that more for a specific racial tension in America. But we could see that here in the Bible, people have always been divided into small groups, and they have always been distrustful of each other. And Jesus has reached out beyond that divide, because most people, like she's saying, would never have spoken to someone outside of their circle. And yet, Jesus has broken through that circle to be inclusive of everyone, including this woman who's drawing water at the well. And I think that would have meant something to Elvis, because he was a very inclusive person. His friends were from all walks of life. He tended to gravitate towards those who had grown up like him. He trusted in their truth and their shared experience, but at the same time, he had great friends that did not grow up like he did. And he had all kinds of people coming to his shows, and he welcomed them all. He played gospel for all of them, but he welcomed them all. I don't think that Elvis recognized divisive circles. Well, he recognized them, but he did not dwell within them. In verse 10, Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. So Jesus is saying to this Samaritan, who is not Jewish, who is outside of the chosen circle, that she too can be saved. And that God will give her the drink of living water, which is the baptism with the Holy Spirit that Jesus is able to provide. He's the real deal. He's not doing it with just water, as a symbol, like his disciples are. He's willing to give this woman salvation right here and right now, if she's willing to ask for it. And he's connected the water that is used as the symbol of the baptism to this moment because he asked her for water. Verse 11, the woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? So the woman confirms for us that Jesus has no way to pull the water from the well. And as when Jesus said, tear down this temple and I will rebuild it, or it will rise again in 3 days, and he was not talking about the physical structure of the temple, he was talking about his own body, how his body was a temple to God, just like each and every person's is a temple to the Lord. And he did raise himself after 3 days, after he was crucified. But this woman, she's asking about the living water, and she has not connected, probably because she has not heard Jesus' message, or John the Baptist, that the Holy Spirit is the living water. So she's confused. Verse 12, Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? So here's where I'm going to be greatly confused in the text, because she identifies that her father was Jacob. So she had a forefather, Jacob, who was a Jew, which would indicate she herself is Jewish. So I'm confused about Samaritans and Jews. I'm not. Maybe somebody with more clarity than I will be able to come in and indicate what that difference is. I know there's another story in the Bible about the Good Samaritan that clearly indicates that they're not Jewish. But this woman sees Jacob as one of her forefathers. And she wants to know if Jesus thinks that he's a greater person than the person who dug this well. And of course, she thinks the person who dug the well is a great person because the well is where all life in this area is springing from. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And in verse 13, Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. So Jesus has told her that the water, it's not the water in the well that he's going to give her. It's something that will last forever. It will not quench her thirst for the moment, but it will refresh her over and over and over for everlasting life. And this would be a good time for us to question ourselves if Elvis felt the water springing up in him throughout his whole life. Is this the reason that Elvis continued to return to the spiritual texts? Is this the reason that Elvis continued to share the Bible with others? Is this the reason Elvis bought hundreds of copies of the impersonal life and annotated and handed them out to those he loved. Is this why he had the gospel sang before his concerts? And why he put out the gospel albums? Because he felt this well of water springing up in him over and over again. He thirsted, but he found the water would again quench his thirst. And Gunn says he's not talking about water, is he? He's talking about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the living water. And just like the well, all true life springs from the living water. And the well of the living water is Jesus himself. So he is greater than Jacob because he didn't make a well. He is the well. And verse 15, the woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. This woman seems to catch on that he's not talking about regular water. I'm not sure that she understands what he's talking about at this point, but she does desire what he is offering. She wants to know more about it. And in verse 16, Jesus saith unto her, Go, call thy husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband, and that saidest thou truly. So now we start to get into a complicated passage that's not clear within these 2 verses. But Jesus has told her to bring her husband, who is probably the person closest to her heart, so that he too can hear Jesus' message and receive the living water. But she says, I don't have a husband. And Jesus says, you've had 5. So I'm assuming this woman's been married 5 times. Not clear yet, but that's what it seems like. And he says that she's married to one right now, but she's right. He's not her husband. Which seems to be Jesus judging a man that he's not treating this woman correctly. I could have completely misinterpreted that section. So if you know more about this, let me know. And as always, feel free to put your comments and your thoughts into the chat and the comments. And be sure to like, subscribe, and tell everybody you know that loves Elvis and that is interested in the spiritual quest that he was on through these texts to join us here at Hillbilly Cat History, so they can put their thoughts into the comments in the chat. In verse 19, the woman saith unto Jesus, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. We've seen many people already in these first 3 chapters refer to Jesus as master or rabbi. Jesus's knowledge and wisdom is apparent to all. Even the Pharisees, they recognize that he's got truth coming out. And they don't know where it's coming from because they don't want to believe that he's the Son of God. This woman doesn't know that he's anything other than a regular man, but she's listening to his words. She doesn't know he's a rabbi or a teacher. But she recognizes the wisdom as the wisdom of prophecy, which would maybe even put him a notch above a rabbi. And Gunn says that verse 18 is odd because it's got 5 husbands. And that could be odd, but we don't know how old this lady is. And life was awful rough in that area. And it's possible there could have been 5 husbands that have died off already, 4 that are already gone, and she's on the 5th. That wouldn't be completely unusual, especially if this woman is in her 40s. And in verse 20, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. So she is saying, the lady, this woman who's drawing the water, she says to Jesus that this is the holy place, and yet it's been abandoned, and you, along with others, you're telling people that the right place to worship is in Jerusalem. And we've already seen that Jesus has been to Jerusalem, and where they worship in the temple has been completely commercialized. That they're doing business, transacting money, using the temple to earn profits. That true worship is no longer going on there. Because no one can worship amongst all those distractions of the monetary and the materialistic. And this lady's saying she knows that this is the holy place because this is Jacob's well. And this is where the worshiping was originally done. And in verse 21, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. So in this passage, Jesus is telling this woman that the time has come that there will be no place where you are supposed to worship from. That he is untying geography from worship. It's not here, it's not at Jerusalem. It's everywhere. It's who you worship. And the worship is for the Father, his Father, God. "22 is confusing for me. You worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews." I'm not even going to attempt to interpret that. I don't understand what it means in any way. He seems to be telling the woman that she doesn't know what she's worshiping. I don't know who he's referring to with we, if it's him and his disciples. And I don't know what for salvation is of the Jews. I know that they were the chosen people, but we've already heard John say that they are not saved, that they must each individually be saved. And then 23, but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. I believe this is a reference to John the Baptist, what he's doing, what the disciples will now be doing, that they are spreading the word, because the Father is seeking all true worshipers. And that doesn't mean you're a Jew. It means that you worship the Father in spirit and in truth. That the circle is now spread beyond the Jews. The moment has come to bring in all people. And in 24, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, why does he keep saying in spirit and in truth? Well, I think he's referencing back to the Pharisees. who may be worshiping in name, in public, that they have a dogma that is being shown to the people and that everyone must adhere to, but that's not in spirit and in truth. It's an outward sign. It's something that belongs in the secular world. It's not truly spiritual. And Emma says that this is really interesting and that she loves this series. Thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate that. And Gunn asks, what happens to Jews after death instead of heaven? So I'm not an expert at the Jewish religion, but my understanding, and again, if there are any Jews with us, or anyone who knows about the Jewish religion that'd like to chime in and say that I'm wrong and put us on the right track, you're welcome to do so. But my understanding is that they go to purgatory. That until Jesus appeared on the earth and then died on the cross and was resurrected, until all three of those things happened, everyone went to purgatory. Unless you, again, I'm not an expert on purgatory. Purgatory may only be where people wait to go to heaven. And those that were already judged to be evil to go to hell, they may have already gone to hell and been given over to Satan. I'm not sure about that. But the good people who would have gone to heaven, they are trapped in purgatory, which it's not heaven, but it's not hell either. So I'm not really sure how they feel about purgatory, like what's going on in purgatory or what their experiences are, but they're there. And then once Jesus, or in the Jewish faith, it would be the Messiah, and in their belief, the Messiah has not come. So all of them are still going to purgatory. But in the Christian faith, after Jesus is resurrected, those that were in purgatory went to heaven. And purgatory disappeared as a holding spot. And now you either go directly to heaven or you go directly to hell. And that at some point in the future will come the rapture, when people will not even die to go to heaven. They will just ascend to heaven during the rapture. And those that are left behind, well, they won't have gone to hell, but they'll basically be living hell on earth. That's kind of the way this all plays out. That's very simplified and not exactly right, but I think that gives us a basis to build our thoughts around. And Gunn asks, what did Elvis think? Is what she really means. What did Elvis think would happen to his Jewish friends? Well, he thought they would go to hell. I mean, what choice did he have? That's what his religion taught. You either went to heaven or you went to hell. And if you hadn't accepted Jesus into your heart, you went to hell. And if you took a really strict interpretation of any of the sects of Christianity, there's a few more rules in each of them. And you might not make it to heaven if you broke any of those rules. So I think what is going on with Elvis is that he's looking around at the people in his life. Elvis is not a normal, typical person, right? Like, we all have people in our life that we could look at and say, this person was very important to my life. I could not be here if this person had not done this or that. And whatever rewards we have reaped from that, we can look and say, some of this is due to this person who helped me. I owe a debt over here. Well, Elvis, what he earned, and not just in money, but you could look at just the money, what he earned and what he accomplished was beyond most mortal men. It was mythical in scale. It was legendary. It remains mythical and legendary, somewhat like Alexander conquering the known world. Elvis is a story that's going to live forever like that. So he's mythical. And the things that the people that helped him, they're numerous. They're not just a few. Like, we could each look and probably name 10. Maybe. We're really lucky. Maybe we had 20 different people we named that truly helped us in our life. Elvis had hundreds that he could point to and say, this person did this for me. Like, look at all the DJs that played his records. And Elvis felt a debt to each and every one of them. Especially the ones that played him before he was famous. In those early days, in 54 and 55 and 56, before he hit RCA. Those people really helped him out. People like Bob Neal, who sacrificed part of his family life in order to help Elvis. Now, he gained from it, but he didn't have to make any of those sacrifices to make some of that gain. Sam Phillips. Those are the names that we know that pop out, but there's a lot of little names, all of Elvis's family. Vester, who works at the gate of Graceland, right? Who's there loyally all the time. Now, Vester had his issues too. He wasn't the perfect person, and he caused a few issues. But overall, these people really helped Elvis out, and he had a great amount of debt to these people. And so he would have felt a tremendous amount of gratitude, and he wouldn't have wanted to see any one of them go to hell. He would have seen every one of them as a good person. And we can look at the few people in our lives, and those that helped us, they might have been of the same religion. So we don't have to worry, are they going to go to heaven with us? Will they be there? But so many people that Elvis knew, when he asked the question, they wouldn't be there. And Gunn says, I didn't know that he must have been worried for them, trying to make them believe in Jesus. And I think Gunn is saying that she didn't know Elvis would have thought they would go to hell. But he wouldn't have had any choice but to think that. And you can see that he's thinking deeply about these things. And Gunn's saying that maybe he was trying to make them believe in Jesus. And I think Elvis was a wise person. Right? We often discount the wisdom that Elvis had. And a lot of people look at Elvis and they put out this story that Elvis did not like confrontations. Well, if you look at the karate series that I did, I think Elvis did like confrontations. He liked to get in there and mix it up. But what he didn't like was to have verbal confrontations. I think he felt they served no purpose. I have the same feeling, and that's why I feel like this about Elvis. And I could be just putting my own feelings over Elvis, but you don't solve anything with a bunch of arguments. Doesn't mean Elvis never argued about anything. But I think for the most part, he didn't argue. He had his feelings. He knew what they were. He was going to do what he wanted to do. And he would listen to your opinion. But I don't think he would argue with your opinion. And now we're talking about something that is fundamental to you, your religion. And Elvis would have seen enough people argue about religion that... and here's a lesson for life that I have for you. When you argue with somebody, I guarantee that the person that you're arguing with will not come around to your point of view. Okay? You're not going to come around to their point of view, and they're not going to come around to yours. Why? Because you're in a confrontation. And that means you both have to dig in, and you become defensive. And now you are not going to change position. You're not going to change position until after the argument, when you've thought about it, and then you think, oh, you know what? I guess they were right the whole time. And then you feel foolish. And then there comes this part where somebody's got to apologize. Elvis was terrible at that apology. He just couldn't do it. I'm terrible at that apology. I don't like doing it either. And so the best way to avoid that in your own life is not to get into arguments. Okay, so when Elvis talked about religion with people, he didn't argue about religion. He showed religion. He tried to demonstrate his religion. He tried to model his religion. But he didn't try to tell you, hey, you need to believe in Jesus. So I don't think he told any of his crew, hey, you need to believe in Jesus. I think he kept showing them that he believed in Jesus. And then he went to God and he said, I'm doing everything I can. Please don't send them to hell. And Gunn says if there's not a heaven, there should not be a hell. And so, Gunn, I could be misspeaking about the Jewish religion in that sense. I don't know. It could be that everyone went to purgatory until the moment that Jesus was resurrected, and then those that were to go to hell went to hell, and those that went to heaven. And Emma says that she agrees with me, and she feels the same about Elvis. And Terry says that Elvis truly believed in Jesus, a very religious man. And Emmett says 100%, Matt, and Gunn agrees as well. So, I mean, I think that's what's going on. Elvis wasn't trying to preach. He wasn't a preacher. He didn't preach to any of his fans. He just showed them the path. He illuminated the way. He said, here's where I'm going. I'm on this yellow brick road. If you want to come along, I sure would like you to be there next to me. We're all going to get to the Emerald City together if you want to come. But he didn't force anybody onto the path. They all had to make their own decision. And in verse 25, the woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. So this woman expresses the faith of the Jewish religion. And she says she knows the Messiah is coming. She believes. She believes that Christ will save them. So she's prepared to see Christ. But she doesn't know when he's coming. And Jesus saith unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. Jesus reveals himself to this lady at the well. And in verse 27, and upon this came his disciples, and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, what seekest thou? Or why talkest thou with her? I believe that this verse is talking about the circles that we talked about earlier. Normally, these disciples, these men, would indicate to Jesus that, hey, this person is not within our circle. This isn't someone we would normally talk to. This is a Samaritan. We don't have dealings with them. But the disciples have already grown enough while traveling with Jesus to understand that as fishers of men, they are fishers of all men, not of a particular group. Jesus is here to save the world, not just the Jews. And in verse 28, the woman then left with her water pot and went her way into the city and saith to the men, come see a man which told me all things that ever I did. Is not this the Christ? So I think we can gather from these two verses that Jesus and the woman had a lengthy conversation, that he told her things about her life that convinced her that he has knowledge beyond the ken of mortal men, and that he is the Christ. And then she goes back and challenges the men in her city that she has seen the Christ, and for them to go see and make a decision for themselves. Is not this the Christ? And they took her up on it, because in verse 30, then they went out of the city and came unto him. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. So the people in the city are coming out to hear Jesus preach. And his disciples are urging him to take strength in food, because he's going to need that strength to get up and talk to these people. But he says to them, I gather my strength elsewhere. My strength is beyond that of mortals. My strength is spiritual. And Gunn says that she knows that Elvis cared for his friends and wanted the best for them, and Emma agrees. But Gunn says not by force, by care, which Emma also agrees with. And Terry says, Elvis believed there is a reason for everything, saying why he was picked from thousands of people to be Elvis. Yes, that's absolutely true. Elvis felt there was a purpose for his life, and he was searching for some of that purpose. But I think he knew some of it, because he'd been told to spread the word, and he was spreading it. And everyone be sure to check out Terry's channel, Elvis History. He's putting out new videos about Elvis, tracking Elvis's history in his life. And in verse 33, therefore said the disciples one to another, hath any man brought him aught to eat? And Jesus saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. So again, Jesus tells them that his strength isn't coming from food. Food is not his fuel. He is being powered by 100% octane God. That he is full of the purpose that his Father has sent him to accomplish. And it's a more powerful fuel than any food he could eat. And he's going to finish that work. Jesus says, say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. Jesus makes an agricultural reference, and he's saying that, the harvest is going to be in 4 months, and everyone in this area, they'd have been well aware of that. Their whole life is running on the timing of this farm, the ritual, the patterns of the farm. The patterns of growing life, the summer and the winter, right? So they know when this harvest is coming. It's a big part of their life. People are not hungry at the harvest. People are very hungry at the end of winter. Okay, but the harvest is coming, and that's a time of plenty. It's a time when you've got to get out there and you've got to bring in the harvest. There's a lot of work to do on that part. And Jesus is saying that work that you're thinking of, that we're going to do in 4 months with the heart, it's now. Because look at the field. And the field is white because it's full of people that have come from the city. And they're there to hear Jesus preach. And that's the field that they've got to harvest now, all of these people. They've got to harvest the souls for God. This is their moment to get the word out. And this is their only moment. And they got to make sure they do it right so these people hear it. Terry says, thanks for the shout out. You're welcome, Terry. And in verse 36, Jesus said, and he that repeateth, or he that reapeth, receiveth wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal, that both he that soweth and he that reapeth may rejoice together. And so Jesus is telling them that the work that they do to reap these souls, it's going to be the greatest fruit they've ever gathered. It's going to be the greatest harvest of all time. And the bounty of that harvest will live eternally. It won't be just for a moment or a season. It won't all be gone by the end of the winter. It will be eternal. And that with each of these stalks that you soweth and reap, you're going to be able to rejoice with those stalks for the rest of eternity together. And 37 says, and herein is that saying true, one soweth, and another reapeth. So in this instance, Jesus is sowing, but it's going to be these disciples who are going to need to do the reaping. Because Jesus isn't going to be here forever. He's going to sow it all now, and then they're going to spend the rest of their lives, and for us, the next 2,000 plus years, reaping. And that's where we're going to end it for today. And when we come back, we will finish out chapter 4 of the book of John. But for now, I'm going to leave you all with a song. And I'm going to play this song, Word of Fire, again. Because it's my new song. And because it tells the story of Elvis walking through these pages, just as we have now walked through them with him. And we learn these lessons that he may have learned, and the ones that we can definitely see reflected in his career and life. And until I see you all again, y'all keep taking care of business.
we are.